Good evening and welcome to News Channel 8. I'm Jerome Aegean and happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Here's some of the top stories we have for you tonight. Hundreds locked out of Island Center on a very special day. A plane crashes on St. Thomas and another violent weekend for St. Croix. These stories and more are up next on News Channel 8. In our top story tonight, it was supposed to be a day of remembrance and peace for Martin Luther King Jr., but it was anything but, as Island Center denied entrance to MLK supporters for the first time in history. News Channel 8's Wes Small files this report.
Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day, everyone. I'm getting ready to throw it to some footage of our parade as it made its way through Scion Farm. We want to remind you that Martin Luther King Jr. was only 39 years old when he was slain in Memphis and at the Lorraine Motel, April 4th, 1968. I remember it well. And he was there to protest for the sanitation workers, right? Well, today, it's similar situations as history repeats itself. Our teachers have not been kept with their promises from Government House. We have several sororities and fraternities marching, of course, the ROTC Central High School Band. But first, I want you to look at this. This is going to shock you. Traditionally, the march leads up here, as you could see, head by the junior ROTC from Central. And then as the cameraman pans there, look at that. It's completely empty, and it's roped off. We now understand that it's $4,000 for the public to speak. $4,000 so that we can air our concerns about 66 homicides. $4,000 so we can air our concerns about government workers not getting their promises. $4,000 and the teachers still coming out of their pocketbooks and their purses. But we can't speak. So where will they speak? Where will the sororities and the fraternities speak? Look, right there, in this tiny parking lot, they have been denied entrance to Island Center. Yeah, you have some airs of concern.
Yes, I have airs of concern that this historical event that's going through all the 50 United States. People died, people was hosed, people were killed, people were jailed. My husband, who died, spent 2 weeks in jail as a teenager for Martin Luther King Walk. For Island Center to rope us off, to say a funding shortage or whatever the statistics was. Just over 65,000 people living in St. Croix. If they asked everyone to donate $1 on this particular day, this should have been open. This is an outrage, okay? And there's an entity here in the Virgin Islands, okay, that we need to be paying attention to. Yes, this should not have happened, okay? This is Martin Luther King Day. This man was assassinated. He didn't just die, he was killed. Civil rights movement, peaceful march. You rope us off. Where's the dogs? Get the German Shepherds. Host them there. The significance of them roping of us is deep and should not have been allowed on this day. If you knew there was a funding shortage, you should have asked. You got sororities, fraternities, churches, and schools. Everybody donate $1. You would have got $65,000 for today.
But yet and still, when the governor wins, he could throw a party at Teddy's and get it paid for.
I don't know about that.
That's what blows
I'm talking about Martin Luther King. I'm talking about Martin Luther, and I'm talking about the people of the Virgin Islands becoming self-sufficient. Stop talking about funding. Be self-sufficient, and this should have been done today. Okay? Whoever the organizers were, they needed help. I would have been the one. If it was a cleanup situation, these children would have volunteered. The cadets, the ROTC, all of them, the fraternities and the sororities would have volunteered. I would have donated water. Plaza would have donated water.
Actually, what's happening now is this is a very serious thing. As the cameraman pans, this is now shut down because this parking lot is completely packed and the kids don't know where to go. Look at this. And I got to tell you, we are very surprised in what happened here today on Martin Luther King Day. And the kids are watching.
It should not have happened. It should not have happened. And I'm telling you, this had better not happen next year. Okay? It should not happen. All right, this is setting us backwards.
Wow. What really was supposed to be a positive event and a day of remembrance for what the man stood for with peace and then the struggles of everyday man just trying to get a dollar so he could put food on the table, we have chaos here. And on a day when we're supposed to pay tribute to Martin Luther King Jr., I've got the little ones looking at me, and they're looking at me with sadness, with tears in their eyes, because they simply can't go across the street and do their speeches where they're supposed to. Who in the world organized this? Who in the world stopped the masses from going in to just vexing and just getting their feelings off their chest? It couldn't have happened at a more auspicious time. That's all I could say. It's very ironic that at times like this, with an all-time high murder rate, people losing their jobs, unkept promises from the top, and then we can't even get in to do our speeches. Some people are just going home. At Island Center, there's always a story inside of a story. Wes Small for News Channel 8.
Thanks, Wes. And in other news, a plane has crashed on St. Thomas, and it was another violent, bloody weekend here on St. Croix as well. News Channel 8's Wes Small has more.
We had several shootings over the weekend, also a carjacking, also an armed robbery at one of the comfort houses, I guess I should say, in Frederickstead. Also, we have a plane on the ground in St. Thomas that crashed next to the Emerald Beach Hotel. And with that, it's talking about St. Thomas and St. John. Our senior correspondent, Lee Carl, is recuperating from that leg injury. We're still praying that he could save that leg as he is in a Long Island hospital. Early this morning, we had a commercial jet that apparently slid or ran off of the tarmac, the runway in St. Thomas. We understand it was a small plane. We don't know the logistics just as yet, but we do know that the FAA is on the scene, and it was very near the Emerald Beach Hotel. But from what we know, there are no injuries, but it did catch on fire. There are several shootings on St. Croix. One, we believe, as early as this morning at 5 o'clock in Scion Farm area, where we believe an individual was shot in his car, and he drove himself to Juan Louis Hospital, and we have reports of suspects firing shots on his way to the hospital. On Saturday, we do know that we had a suspect who tried to steal someone's marijuana plants, I believe, and he was shot, and that person was subsequently arrested, the one who shot him, I believe that. Details are still sketchy because, you know, Melody Raines has been on vacation, and communication with me and the VIPD is very scarce, so I'm just barely getting these things. I guess these reports will have to be all made out by tomorrow. We also believe we had another individual shot as well, so it could have been 2 or 3 shootings. Like I said, if they don't give it to me, I can't give it to you. We also had a carjacking yesterday in the area of 2+2 nightclub. An armed robbery, like I said, in one of the houses in Frederickstead. So with that, I think you're pretty much caught up. But it was a violent weekend, and then we did have the airplane crash over in St. Thomas. Remember, if you see a crime happen, immediately call 911, 778-2211, or you could always call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS. I'm Wes Small for News Channel 8.
And let's go back to the MLK celebrations with some comments from our senators.
Senator Ronald Russell. And I just want to say happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day to you, Senator. Can I ask you a question? What this means today, as far as the police officers, the COs, a lot of government workers, and the teachers in particular, not getting promises from Government House, and they're out here protesting today. And then, could you take a look to your left and tell us why this yellow rope is here and why everyone is going to be forced into this tiny parking lot? What happened to the $4,000 for Island Center? And why is it that Commander Russell and his troops have just found out minutes ago that they have to take a right instead of a left? Okay. Hi.
Let's first recognize Martin Luther King and his contribution. Before we get to your questions are pretty specific. But Martin Luther King represented to minority black people and people all over the world freedom and equality and non-violence. So let's talk about non-violence and let's talk about freedom and equality. That's what Martin Luther King stood for. And I want to pay tribute to him by saying that I am gracious to all of the people that came out here, the schools, the people in the organizations, the unions, the National Guard, and all of the people who come out here. So let's pay tribute to Martin Luther King first before we get to some of the specifics that you asked, okay? And Martin Luther King is bigger than any local problem or any problem that could come up in a nation. Martin Luther King is a world figure that speaks about humanity and how we should aspire to become a better human being. Martin Luther King, we honor you. Okay, I didn't know about the Island Center issue, so when I walked up here, I am also very troubled by the fact that such an auspicious occasion has to be done in a parking lot. So I hope that we could get to the bottom of that. The union issues, they are issues that we have to deal with locally, with the legislature and our executive. But for today's day, I'm hopeful that we could put those things aside temporarily and honor Martin Luther King as a man who stood up for humanity, who stood up for decency, justice, fairness, and freedom. Thank you.
Well, of course, everybody knows today is Martin Luther King Day. It's a very significant day for us here in the territory and in the world. Martin Luther King fought for justice, and justice was not partial, and it's important to understand that. We can't be partial about implementing justice. Whether you're rich or you're poor, it should be the same justice that is sought. Don't take advantage of the poor, don't take advantage of the rich. So I think it's significant for us as Virgin Islanders to be out there to support the march. We still have conditions relative to workers. We still have conditions relative to the quality of life. So what Martin Luther King represented then, and we still have issues now, even though it's a less strenuous time, but particularly as it relates to the race divide. But we still have conditions, and it's a bigger economic divide that now exists. And I'm quite certain that Martin Luther King will be fighting for the same thing, and that is to raise the bottom. Those of us on the bottom, it's harder, getting harder and harder to live from day to day. So I came out to support annually, and I encourage others to support, and it's important that we continue to teach our children the value of standing up for right, not when it's convenient, but because it is the right thing to do. So congratulations to all who have come out, to all the organizations. And as you know, this year, there's actually a demonstration alongside the Martin Luther King March because the workers are a little upset because of the freeze in pay. They were promised increases, they were negotiated increases, and it appears that they were lied to. So, you know, Martin Luther King, and for all you've done, thank you, much honor to you, and we appreciate what he's done then in the 60s for us to be able to stand and walk today.
And we want to thank the senators for their comments today on MLK Day. When we come back from this break, your Caribbean report and more. Stay with us.